Let's talk about the move-in discussion. Hey, my name is Katie Hamilton, and I'm the Director of Client Success at Conversion Formula. Today, I really wanted to discuss that big conversation that happens. Either it's happening with you or it's happening between family, within their loved ones. It's happening. The discussion that, hey, it's time for us to consider next steps. It's time for us to consider what's going to happen next. And honestly, it's time to look at communities. Sometimes families will wait. They'll wait too long because they don't know how to have that discussion, right? They don't know how to get it started. They don't know how to make it not feel bad or like an inconvenience of some kind because they cannot help to see it through such a negative lens. And I see that with so many families, all types of families. It doesn't mean that they're an angry family or a resentful family or anything if they're having a hard time through that process. It just means that it's different and they're having a really hard time connecting to it. And so we need to help them see it through a different lens so their loved one can see it through a different lens. Ultimately, if they are waiting through the process for me to have that conversation with their loved one, it typically will go something like this. I will show up to their house and I will be prepared to do the assessment, which is what we are required to have in our state, which just basically says, yes, I've reviewed this person, they're appropriate for my kind of licensing. And within that, we'll have the discussion. However they set it up, we typically will discuss ahead of time. But if it's me, I'm coming in to do this assessment, and also I'm coming in to tell you a little bit more about my community, what is offered in assisted living, why it shouldn't be so scary, of all those discussions and those subjects are up to me. This is usually how I enter it. I will have that assessment. I'll go through those steps. We'll talk throughout that, but typically before I start that, I'll say, hey, do you know why I'm here? And typically they'll be like, oh, my daughter thinks that I might need A, B, and C, or, oh, I'm having problems with all of these things, and I can see how it could be an issue or how people could be a concern for me. And then we really dive into that conversation of what are those things that are happening? Why are they scary? And then I'll kind of come up with the alternative. And then through that conversation, I'll address how assisted living, how my community will address that concern, will address that issue that they're having. So if it's, I keep getting up in the middle of the night and I forget that I need my walker and I just start walking to the bathroom and I typically fall. I know what my community does in those situations, so I can have that prepared, have that ready and say, okay, this is what we do when we have a resident that is facing those same kind of concerns, because it is the middle of the night. You might have taken medicine to go to sleep, and just let them know all the reasons why we know that that can happen. Really establishing yourself as a professional, establishing yourself as someone on their side is going to help them in this discussion. I agree that families should not leave it up to us as a community or as someone coming in to assist them. They should not be leaving that up to us, because it's so important for them to hear that from their loved one and saying, hey, mom, hey, dad, uncle, aunt, whoever you are to me, I see these things that are very concerning to me. And I see that, hey, it's probably time that we take this step. And this is how we're going to take that step. And here's how I'm going to support you. And here's how I'm going to be by you. That goes really, really well versus them being blindsided. I will never openly agree to a blindsided situation, but that does happen. Sometimes you'll show up and they said, oh, I knew I was supposed to talk to them, but I got too scared and now you're here and now I want you to do it. And however you want to handle that, I respect and I totally get. But if you do find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh, I feel comfortable explaining this, I feel comfortable walking with this family, walking with this potential resident down this line of this is what care looks like in a community, and this is what care looks like specifically in my community. When we do that for people, we are helping our greater community. We are helping people in a journey to understand what they themselves are going through. I know that oftentimes people come back to, it's not my job. This isn't something I should be doing. Oh my gosh, they don't know A, B, or C. And we can get so caught up in that and we forget the greater mission. And what's happening is that people need care, and families often do not know what to do. And we have to stand up and say, here's how I'll help you, or here's where to look, or hey, I hear you, maybe try A, B, and C, because they don't know. The resources are not actively out there for them. Not only that, our society is not preaching what's going to happen when you grow old. So it is often a shock when someone in their life has grown old and now they have to figure out their care when they've just always cared for themselves. We're dealing with so many elements from our society, from our culture, from our own, each individual family that we're addressing and talking with. So we have to bring that all into every scenario that we're working throughout this industry so that we can come out with a better industry. We can come out with a better world, hopefully, but at least we know everyone that's coming in contact with me is ideally either getting what they need or being sent in the right direction. So when we say, okay, maybe you don't know how to fully have this conversation, maybe you don't know how to fully address this in a way that's not scary with your loved one, I don't mind at my assessment, at our next tour, come for lunch, come see our community, have the potential resident come see our community, and we'll sit and we'll talk. And we'll have that discussion. What does a life look like for a resident who lives in your community? Walk them through that. Show them how it's not scary. Show them how it is going to be filled with joy and love and a lot of care. Care is going to happen all throughout the day. We're going to have people here who are going to listen to you, and you're going to be heard all throughout this experience. So whatever you can do to really bridge that is going to make their experience in your community that much sweeter. We cannot penalize families for not knowing. They do not know how to handle these things. That's okay. How can we help them? If you guys would like to have more discussions like this, let me know. I love diving into each thing that a community is doing, why you think it's really benefiting you, what are things that we're looking for that we keep running up against that we need better solutions for. I love these discussions, so keep your questions coming. Message me wherever you're seeing this about other topics that you might be interested in, and we can dive in for sure. Thanks so much. Have a great day.